By the time I turned 10 in 1955, the world outside our Chinatown apartment had begun to shift in ways that I didn't yet fully understand. But I could feel the tension in the air. The Cold War was no longer just a topic in the evening paper. It had seeped into classrooms, television screens, and dinner table conversations. America was nervous. The fear of the unknown was now dressed up as patriotism. And people like us, who looked and sounded foreign, became easy targets for suspicion. Senator McCarthy's hearings played out on the black and white television in the laundromat down the street, where my mother sometimes took me while she waited for the dryers. I'd watch men get grilled by sharp-tongued officials, their names dragged across the screen like warnings. I didn't understand everything, but I understood enough. Being Chinese meant being suspect, even if you were born here, even if your family had no connection to communism, even if your greatest crime was your name. And my name, Hoi Lam, it drew glances that lingered too long when called aloud during attendance. By 6th grade, I had grown weary of it, of repeating it slowly for teachers, of watching their eyebrows lift and mouths struggle. I had read the name Ellen in a library book. It was simple, soft, symmetrical. It didn't raise questions. It didn't make people pause. One morning before class, I walked up to my teacher and said, "Can I go by Ellen?" She didn't ask why. She just smiled and wrote it into her ledger like it was nothing. But to me, it was everything. That day, I shed a layer of myself. Not out of shame, but out of survival. I needed to fit. I needed to breathe easier. I didn't want to explain anymore. But it wasn't easy, because at home, I was still Hoi Lam. My mother still called to me in sharp musical tones from the kitchen. My father still greeted me with "Nei fan la" when I came home from school. I still helped wrap dumplings every Saturday afternoon, my hands learning the rhythm from hers. I followed my father to the market on Stockton Street, where the fishmongers shouted in Cantonese and the air smelled of ginger and scallions. And then I'd step back into the English-speaking world. I watched I Love Lucy every week and laughed at jokes I didn't always understand, but repeated anyway. I wore saddle shoes like the other girls, saved my allowance for Beatles records when they finally arrived in stores, and practiced writing Ellen Chan in cursive across the margins of my notebook. I straddled two identities, holding them tightly in either hand. There were days it felt like balance. There were others when it felt like being split in half. But I was determined. I learned to shift tones the way people switch jackets at the door. In Chinatown, I was quick-witted and fluent. In school, I was polite, eager, and observant. I became an expert in code switching before I ever learned the term. I wasn't ashamed of my roots. But I was beginning to understand that survival meant knowing when to let them show and when to tuck them gently away. I didn't resent this act. Not yet. At 11 years old, I believed it was just what you did. What all of us children of immigrants did. We carved out a new shape for ourselves, one word at a time. By the end of the decade, I could speak both tongues like a native. I could blend in or stand apart. But more importantly, I was starting to realize that these two versions of me didn't cancel each other out. They completed each other